Reppin' Philly ain't a choice. It's a way of life. PhillyGoat.com is your one-stop shop for Philly pride. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off. Look fresh, stay Philly, Philly Goat. Go Birds. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for October 29th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy Hump Day to everyone out there. And what a game. This team is so much fun. I've been saying it for a while now. This team is so much fun. The combo of VJ Max, which they're calling them, which I love, absolutely love. Go to Philly Goat. They have VJ Max shirts because, of course, they do. But 19 points down in the second half. They battled back, win it 139-134 in overtime. Tyrese Maxey is leading the league in scoring. Bonafide taking that step to an elite player. VJ took a step back but still had 14. Played well, but no need to fear. Quentin Grimes picked up the slack for him. Joe had 25 points, but struggled defensively. That's okay, though, because he's still trying to work his way back. And I feel like anything you're going to get out of him is what you need. But, man, this team is fun. Adem Bonham with 5 blocks. Like, that dude was all over the court, including, if you did watch the game, you were able to see the block right before the end of regulation that set up the Sixers tying score. But man, it's fun. And I mean, Joe's a work in progress. He's still on a minutes restriction, and I think as we see offensively, he's getting better. I think what he's struggling with right now is finding his place on defense and sort of what his new body, I guess you could say, is going to be. I don't know. It's fun. They're a work in progress, and yes, they're playing not the easiest or hardest schedule right now, but that's all right. Basketball is fun. They're 4-0. It's just enjoyable. It's not like at some point earlier this season when the Phillies were very workmanlike and it wasn't fun to watch the games. This team is fun. They are having fun. Go with it. Enjoy it. I heard on the afternoon show yesterday on WIP them talking about not having expectations. Go with the no expectations. The fact that basketball is fun again, it brings me back to the early days of Joe and the player who we all hate to say, but Ben Simmons. Those teams were fun. They were fun, and that's what this team is reminding me of. I think that the upside is much, much higher with these guys, especially if you throw a guy like Paul George coming back. You got Jared McCain coming back in the next few weeks. It's fun. Just let it go and enjoy it. Absolutely fun to watch, and it was riveting. Like, even though you could tell they were tired playing on the first or second end of a back-to-back, you kind of still were watching that game and had a sense. I don't know, at least I did anyway. I just kind of was like, all right, they're kicking into gear. They're struggling right now in the third quarter of games, which I think is something that they certainly need to work on. But I think as they get their legs and everything underneath them, they'll improve that. But it's just fun. Let yourself go. This team is enjoyable. Like, we haven't had enjoyable basketball here in a long time. So sit back, kick up your feet, and just enjoy the Sixers. They're in action Friday night, Halloween, down at the Xfinity Mobile Center or Arena, whatever it's called, against Boston. So that should be another fun one. After you bring the kids back in from trick-or-treating, sit down, maybe start a fire, and watch the Sixers Celtics. The other winter team, another fun game. They're fun too. We're going to have some fun this winter, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to have some fun. Flyers Penguins. It was a typical Flyers Penguin battle. Had a little bit of everything. Flyers win it 3-2 in overtime via shootout, but you had fights, you had controversial calls, you have goals being scored, game winners, and then taken off the board. It was just an absolute what you'd expect. Flyers, Penguins, two teams literally kind of passing in the night on their trajectory, which would take Bobby Brink scored, Travis Konecny scored his 200th career goal, and then Samuel Ersson was just outstanding in net again. And if you haven't seen it, go back and watch Bobby Brink's shootout winner. What a move. What a play. This team is fun too. What is happening here in Philadelphia? We have a fun team. Two fun teams this winter to watch. You gotta love it. I'm pumped. Not a whole lot on the Eagles front. The trade deadline is Tuesday. Both coordinators spoke yesterday. Didn't really say much of anything. It's quiet. There was a Halloween party, and already people, and I don't even know at this point what's tongue-in-cheek and what's legitimate, but because AJ and Devontae weren't there at the team Halloween party, which I don't even think was a team function. I think it was like Lane Johnson threw it. People are speculating. Come on, guys. Like, stop. But not other than that, the Halloween party, that was all coming out of Eagles. But there will be another Brotherly Birds breakdown dropping tomorrow during Thursday Night Football. Kind of break down the Giants game, kind of look at the trade deadline, and just give you the state of the team as we enter the halfway point of the Eagles season. 6-2, looking good. My, how things have changed in just a few short weeks here in Philly sports, but I will take it. Speaking of Philly sports, yesterday, the trivia question was, which team has the most championships in Philly? And up until this past Super Bowl, it was the Philadelphia Athletics, but now the Athletics and the Eagles are tied with 5 titles each. Everybody else has 2. Hopefully, the Sixers, maybe even the Flyers, can get hot, shock the world, and add to that trophy case. All right, some quick housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on social media at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. It's the best way to stay in the loop of when things drop. The Clashing Conferences members pod that I was on last week is available on the YouTube channel. So just go check that out for all things channel related, Philly sports related. And then, of course, subscribe, review, follow, comment, all that good stuff. Everything outsmarts the algorithm. And I've been trying my best to get to everyone's comments. My boy Scott on the Back to the Future voice and text line yesterday was complaining about the refs overturning that call and complaining about the sports gambling and everything. And ordinarily, I'd be like, it is what it is. But in light of all the stuff that's happening with the NBA, it's hard to make that argument anymore. But hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line, 267-495-8531. Have a conversation. Get your Philly sports take. Anything else off your chest as we go. And then just a quick reminder or announcement. Working once again with the Maddie Ann Dixon Community Cupboard this holiday season for our third annual now. This is pretty cool. Fourth annual maybe. I have to check that. No, third annual because we've only been around for 4 years. Whatever. Either way, working with the Maddie Ann Dixon Community Cupboard over in Ambler to help people in our community out. Definitely not an area that you necessarily think of, but with all the stuff that's going on politically, every little bit's going to help. We're going to break it down into 2 phases again. Likely we'll set up the GoFundMe, and that way, if you want to donate, you can't get food, we'll do the reverse advent calendar again, but we're going to get gift cards to either Target or Walmart. And then, of course, we'll go through the reverse advent calendar and get some of the supplies they need. I was talking with them earlier this week, and it does seem as though they're probably going to be in need of like personal items like toiletries and things like that. But stay tuned for that. That is coming in mid-November. But just wanted to throw it out there because if you're feeling like you want to donate, I will have the opportunity for you. So stay tuned for that. Excited to work with them, though, as always. This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, a growing community of diehard fans turning their sports passion into something special. Whether you're looking for unique shows, want to launch your own podcast but don't have the time, or need production services, the ClashingConferences.com has everything you need. Explore fan-driven content, become a member, or tap into their media services to level up your brand. That's ClashingConferences.com, where fans' voices get heard. All right, October 29th. Kind of a mixed bag here for our teams. But first, let's go back to 2009. And on this day in 2009, Pedro Martinez pitched 6 innings, giving up 2 home runs to Mark Teixeira and Hideki Matsui. Phillies, unfortunately, though, only managed 1 run. Mariano Rivera came in and saved and added to, I should say, his major league record for saves in the postseason, got his 38th as the World Series came back to Philly, tied 1 game apiece. We were all feeling good about this. Unfortunately, in the next few days, we'll kind of go into what happened in that World Series. But on this day, Phillies lose Game 2 of the 2009 World Series 3-1. They lose 3-1. Those 2 home runs were the difference in the game, and then the Phillies offense couldn't do anything. So 3-1, the Phillies win, not 6-1. The great thing is I'll be able to go back and fix that through editing. All right, let's go then back to 1989, and the Eagles go to Mile High Stadium to face the Denver Broncos, and they come out running the ball. This was an issue with those teams, specifically from 88 through 1990, that they didn't really run the ball, didn't have the offensive line to do it. So what do they do against the stout Denver Broncos defense? They come out and run the ball, score 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, and hang on to beat the Broncos 28-24. All totaled, 215 rushing yards that day for the Eagles. Keith Byers led the way with 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. Passing, Randall was very efficient, threw for only 126 yards, but 2 touchdowns to Chris Carter and Jimmy Giles. But it was all about the defense. The Eagles defense said, oh, you want to talk about the Denver Broncos defense? We got a pretty good defense ourselves. They forced 6 turnovers, including 3 John Elway interceptions, sacked Denver quarterback 7 times, including a ridiculous 3.5 by Clyde Simmons, soon to be Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductee Clyde Simmons. The Eagles moved to 6-2 on the season in 1989. That season ended, unfortunately, with the disappointing loss to the Rams. But on this day, the Eagles surprised the Broncos, coming out running the ball, beating them 28-24 at Mile High Stadium. And I remember this was one of those 4 o'clock games where I told Mom, like, hey, can we move dinner up early or make it later? And kudos to my mom for changing dinner that day. And then, of course, the big story on October 29th in Philadelphia sports history is, and for at least the time being, likely always will be, Game 5 of the 2008 World Series resumed. In the bottom of the 6th, it was pretty much a sprint. You knew you weren't going to be up late watching this game because there wasn't going to be that much of a game. Resumed in the bottom of the 6th. Jeff Jenkins pinch hitting for Cole Hamels. Led off with a double. Jason Worth knocked him in. And then in the top of the 7th, Rocco Baldelli hit a homer off of Ryan Madson to tie it. Rays threatened to extend the series to Game 6, but then Chase Utley, with one of the best defensive plays I've ever seen, the fake throw home to end the Rays rally and keep the score tied. And then in the bottom of the 7th, Pat Burrell, making his last at-bat with the Phillies, crushed one to center, hit off the top of the wall for a double, and then he was pinch ran for by Eric Bruntlett. And then Pedro Feliz, who oftentimes is forgotten about of hitting in that game winner, knocked him in. Brad Lidge comes in, gets the save. Harry Kalas with the iconic, the Phillies are world champions of baseball. And then, of course, you have Brad Lidge going down to his knees, Chooch. You have Ryan Howard dogpiling on. You had Chase Utley giving the sign, running in. You had then Shane Victorino with the Jimmy Superfly Snuka on top of the pile and just let off an epic celebration. ended up going down to Main Street in Manioc, partying all night, celebrating the first time I had ever seen a championship in Philadelphia. It was a lot of fun. Hurting the next day at work. Kids knew it. And I was like, you know what? As long as you're quiet, we can celebrate the Phillies. We watched replays of the World Series the entire day that day. But on this day, back in 2008, the Phillies become world champions. Yeah. All right. It is Wednesday. And What If Wednesday is always brought to you by Lotwin. Go to lotwin.com. Get your 3D custom hype chain. These things are phenomenal. They're great for bachelor parties, kids' sports, whatever you want. Gifts around the office. But I can't stress enough how good the quality of these chains are. So go to lotwin.com and use the promo code TCCPOD to get your 3D custom hype chain. Personalized 3D custom hype chains. All right, so the Phillies right now heading into this offseason, and this was the case before the Bryce Harper, Dave Dombrowski thing, they're kind of at a crossroads here. What do? They got an aging core who is still pretty good, who you have a phenomenal pitching staff who held Shohei Ohtani, who's been going off ever since the Phillies series. They held him in check to one hit. But on this day in 2022, they lost Game 2 of the World Series to the Astros, and we're feeling good. World Series came back to Philly. They won Game 3, and they exploded offensively that game, but then were no hit in Game 4 and then lost the next two. So today, for What If Wednesday, I want to look at what if they didn't get no hit? What if the bats didn't go cold and somehow the Phillies use that momentum from the big what I forget what they hit, 5, 6, 7 home runs in that game. What if they carried that momentum, ended up beating the Astros, whether it was 6 or 7 games, and win the World Series? How do we view this team now? How do we view this offseason in particular? What's it mean for Bryce's legacy? Obviously, he would have the World Series title, and all of the other stuff kind of almost gets forgotten about because Mike Schmidt, for the most part, wasn't necessarily the greatest in the postseason, but did phenomenal in the 1980 World Series. So Bryce Harper leads them. It certainly changes his legacy, but this offseason would still be a crossroads for the Phillies. So you have a World Series in your pocket. Do you need to re-sign Kyle Schwarber? Does Trey Turner ever come and sign for Philly? Or is the need to sign him different because it's like, hey, come here and try to win another one? Do they re-sign Nola? You got to think, with a World Series in hand, do they start the youth movement? What's it mean for Bohm and Stott? Do we view them differently? Do we see Justin Crawford up here earlier? Do we see Andrew Painter up here earlier? And more importantly, what's it mean for the 2023 team? Do they have the confidence to not be, because the bats wouldn't have gone cold, do they go back and go back to back? Then the 24 team, they were even better in the regular season. Do they not choke against the Mets? And then, of course, this past season, are they sort of in the same boat, in the same position the Dodgers were in that, and the Dodgers are the team they're chasing? I really do think it changes the whole mentality of this team, changes the whole narrative around this team. But it's one of those things. So here we are at a crossroads. But man, if they would have ended up winning that World Series in 2022, I think the whole thing changes. And you can go either way. Maybe they break it up and start rebuilding with who they have. Maybe they get greedy the way Ruben Amaro Jr. was and kind of deplete the farm system en route to try to go back-to-back or win 2 out of 3 or 2 out of 4, 3 out of 4, whatever it could be. But I definitely think it changes the entire narrative. But let me know what you think on the Back to the Future voice and text line on the anniversary of the Phillies losing Game 2 of the 2022 World Series. They had one more offensive outburst, and then the bats just went cold. But what could have been? What could have been? And I do think we're looking at this whole entire offseason completely differently if we have a World Series in our pocket. But that was What If Wednesday, brought to you by Lotwin. Go to lotwin.com, get your 3D custom hype chain, use the promo code TCCPOD for 10% off of your order. And then finally today, our 2025 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductee spotlight is Mike Rogier, a football player. He's a Camden native, went to Wilson High School. The stadium there in Camden is named after him. And from there, he went to Nebraska, where he was a two-time All-American, three-time All-Big Eight, two-time Big Eight Player of the Year, set the NCAA record with 29 rushing touchdowns in 1983. Just a phenomenal 83 season. He won the Heisman, the Maxwell Award, the Walter Camp, and the Chick Harley Award. He was the National Player of the Year by many media outlets. Went on to become the number one pick in 1984 of the USFL, drafted by the Pittsburgh Maulers. While in the USFL, ran for over 2,100 yards, 18 touchdowns, and then once the league started to fold, was the number 2 overall pick in the supplemental draft by the Houston Oilers. Had an 8-year NFL career, 2-time Pro Bowler. His number 30 is retired at Nebraska. He is in the Nebraska Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame, the Camden Schools Hall of Fame, and on November 6th, takes his place in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame among the Philadelphia area legends who were the best of the best to do it. So Mike Rogier is today's 2025 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductee spotlight. What a magical season that 83 season was. Everybody talks about the quarterbacks coming out in the 83 draft, but Mike Rogier certainly was one of the best, if not hands down the best player in college football that year. So shout out to you, Mike Rogier, today's 2025 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductee spotlight. And then finally, that does lead to today's trivia question. Mike Rogier won the Heisman in 1983. Who came in second in the voting that year? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line for that. The Discord channel, which is the first link in the description. But who was second in the Heisman voting in 1983? Let me know your thoughts on the 2022 Phillies. Had they won it, how would the narrative have changed? I think 100% it changes completely. On this day in 2029, Phillies lose Game 2 of the World Series to the Yankees 3-1. 1989, Eagles pound the Denver Broncos 28-24. Defense forcing 6 turnovers, having 7 sacks. And then, of course, on this day in 2008, the Phillies become world champions, beating the Rays in the shortened, resumed Game 5. And we all partied, and we all know how that parade went. We talk about the Eagles parade. That Phillies parade was one for the ages as well. All right, we'll have more on the Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, Eddie, Phillies news that might come up. Union have a playoff game coming up this weekend as well. So we'll get into all of that tomorrow. It also is Throwback Thursday, so stay tuned for that. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for October 29th, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a hump day. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.